So now that you've started putting advertisements at the beginning of our shows,
Yeah.
I think you owe me some. You need to buy some ad space.
Hey, baby, I hear those blues are calling.
No, you're not getting out of this. You owe me like $50.
I $50.
CBS All-Access subscriptions ain't cheap.
How? First of all, this
You
is
know how much they cost a month?
uh
$9.99.
okay.
You know how many months there are in a year?
12.
Dozens.
Oh, okay.
Literally dozens.
Multiple dozens.
Yes.
According to Wikipedia, CBS All Access is $5.99 a month. I don't know who's selling you $9.99 CBS All Access, but they're getting one over on you.
There's this guy who sells me a CBS All Access subscription. He said it fell off a truck and you sell it to me for a special price.
For $9.99?
Yeah, a month.
For 67% higher than market value?
He said it was a good deal.
Come on, I got some Star Trek Picard for you, kid. Just get in the car. Yeah. Yeah, no, great. Wonderful.
All right. All right. So it's season 1, episode 20 of Frasier, Fortysomething.
40-something.
Um,
He's 40-something, Frazier.
Yeah. So this is the episode where we learn how old Frasier is.
Yep.
And well, I mean that's not really what the episode's about, but it is dealing with age and the aging process and some of the pitfalls of growing older, specifically being in a relationship with a younger woman.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get into it.
Yeah, let's start talking about it.
So in the episode, we open. It's Frasier. He's doing his radio show. He's got Rachel on the line. Rachel is having a problem with. Is it her boyfriend?
She's got a strange sort of love triangle going on, where she recently married a widower. They're married, but he keeps an urn with his late wife's ashes on the dresser in their bedroom, and it's Frasier's like, he literally says yikes, and then Rachel's like, oh, thank God, I didn't think this was normal. He says there's something all couples do.
He like sprinkles the ashes on the bed while we make love. I knew that wasn't normal.
I knew that was weird. Something in my gut told me something's off about this.
She's voiced by, what is it, Reba McEntire?
Reba McEntire, famous country musician and famous for 6 seasons of Reba, the TV show. So when I realized it was Reba McEntire, I was like, oh.
I thought you were going to say famous for Tremors.
Oh, was she in Tremors?
She was in Tremors, apparently.
She was in Tremors? All right. How many Tremors movies was she in?
Like, she was in... God. Aren't there, like, as many Tremors movies as there are, like, Land Before Time movies?
There are many, many Tremors movies. One of them came out this year. Tremors Shrieker Island.
I'm going to watch that, then.
It's a classic starring Reba McEntire. No, not really. Oh, the guy he's Napoleon Dynamite. He was in Tremors 7, Shrieker Island. Wonderful. It's going to be released direct to video, of course.
Oh man, I would totally go to a movie theater to watch that.
Especially now, in today's day and age. Yeah.
So Reba's got a problem where her husband, he's keeping his
deceased wife. His widow.
I almost said ex-wife, but technically she's an ex-wife.
In a sort of way, yeah. His ex-wife. He keeps her in an urn.
She's like ex-alive.
Yeah. She's an ex-person. She's an ex-human. And then Rachel is like, oh man, maybe I can move her into the guest room, like the corpse, the ashes. And then you hear a jar breaking, and Frasier's like, Rachel, what happened? And then Rachel's like, I gotta run, Dr. I've got some vacuuming to do. So she can vacuum up her husband's wife's ashes.
I mean, that's the way to do it if you're gonna try and collect them all and put them back in the urn.
Or just vacuum it up and replace it with, let me think. You could replace it with any kind of dust. You could replace it with, the Fruity Pebbles dust at the bottom of the bag.
Yeah, he's never gonna know.
What is he? Does he pop it open and flash a light in there and go like, "What's going on in there?" You don't inspect an urn. It's pretty safe. You can replace it with whatever.
It could be empty.
It could be empty. Who would check? Ooh, it's a little lighter than usual. I don't know. Who would check?
So it's Frasier forgets Roz's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. As he's signing off. Well, not signing off, but as he's like, winding down or whatever it is. He brings up brings up his producer for some reason, which is weird.
It's interesting that he decide. I don't know if that's part of his sign off. I don't think we've seen him reference Roz in his sign off before. But he decides like, I'm gonna do a nice thing. I'm gonna throw it out to my producer. And then realizes he's completely forgotten her name. And then Roz is like, Roz. And then Frasier goes, Roz, okay. And then he does the radio signature right. The call sign, 780 AM.
Yeah. So Frasier, he talks to Roz. He's like, oh, I've been forgetting things lately. I went into the kitchen the other night, and I just stood there. I couldn't remember what I'd gone in there for. Mm-hmm. And Roz, she uses this moment of vulnerability just to completely mess with Frasier.
Make fun of him and his age for being old, yeah.
Yeah, she says she says he has an appointment with Timo?
Timo, his stylist.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember making an appointment with Timo. And Roz is like, you didn't, I was just gaslighting you. Which I don't know so gaslighting is, of course, a term made famous by that movie called Gaslighting.
Right.
From 1944. But I don't know if it really, really entered the zeitgeist. So it's interesting that Frasier's ahead of its time. And
Frasier is the one that popularized it.
I mean, I guess. I suppose.
It is weird to hear... It is weird to hear that in Frasier being said, because normally we think of, shows from the 90s as being so horribly outdated.
Right, but it would be the equivalent of if Roz, dabbed or, did a damn Daniel joke. It's like, oh, we're kind of looking into the future here.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. But even better because gaslighting is still a thing that comes up nowadays instead of damn Daniel. Anyway, so Frasier's like, that's not funny, and then Roz gives him some forms to sign, and then Roz
pretends it's her birthday.
Pretends it's her birthday, and then Frasier's like, it's not your birthday, and then she gets hurt, and then Frasier's like, oh, I'm so sorry, it is your birthday, let me take you to lunch. And then Roz is like, you're so easy, and then they...
You fool!
You idiot. And then Roz... is like, aren't you... Frasier gets offended, and he tries to leave, and Roz is like, are you forgetting something? And he's like, I'm not forgetting anything. And she sits back down and starts counting down, and he runs back in so he can resume the show after the commercial break.
So, yeah, it's a pretty funny scene. And unlike some of the other, I feel, opening scenes that we've had this season, it does sort of set us up for the rest of the episode where we deal with Frasier and his aging and yeah.
Yeah.
So we get to our next scene. It's Frasier's apartment. Martin and Niles are playing canasta.
Doing some canasta stuff.
The transcript says canasta. I didn't know what they were playing. I thought they were just shouting out numbers.
10. And then Martin says 15-2. And then Niles says no! And I guess it's canasta. A thing I've never seen anyone play. Dad, would you ask your dog to stop burrowing at my shoes? I'll have you know I waited 6 months. So, from a little blind cobbler in Seville.
He got those shoes. A blind cobbler made them for Niles, specifically.
Yeah, and he had to mail them, which is very difficult. If anything, for a blind cobbler, it's more difficult to get shoes in the mail than to make the shoes. because you've got to get in. You've got to get to the post office, and you've got to put them in a box, and you've got to get the stamps right.
Does he
And
charge more because he's blind? Is that like part of the prestige?
I think so. I think it's exclusive because it has to cost more. I think if you're
because it's like if you just get your shoes cobbled by a cobbler, that's like that's no big deal. But if you get it done by a blind cobbler,
ooh.
But then the shoes don't look that good because he's blind.
Right. That is that's an ableist comment.
It's like
Adam.
Just because they're like two toes on one shoe.
Oh, so because he can't see the shoes, he's not good at making the shoes? Is that what you're saying? Just because he has no idea what feet look like?
I'm saying it would be funny if Niles was paying more for an inferior
shoes.
product.
I see. Yes, that would be funny. I understand. Anyway, Eddie keeps chewing on his shoes, and Martin says, it won't stop till you scratch him behind the ears. And then Niles pulls out a handkerchief and scratches Eddie's ear, and then Eddie runs off happily, and Niles is like, I'm beginning to have this affinity towards animals. And then he throws the handkerchief away, and that's kind of that bit.
Frazier walks in. He decides he's gonna do a little noodling on the piano. Mm-hmm. He calls it noodling. I've never heard that term before. Mm-hmm. That was not them looking into the future. Noodling was not something that translated into 2020.
No, unfortunately not.
So he starts playing a piece, and then as he gets to one part of it, he sort of trails off, and he's like, he can't remember how the piece goes, and he's like, I know this piece forwards and backwards, I can't remember it. And of course this gets Frazier talking again about how he keeps forgetting stuff more and more lately, and Martin's of course saying, well, welcome to the club, pal, you're getting older. And Niles, he agrees with him. He says that I know you'd like to believe we're still the same devilish sprigs we always were, sitting on Mother's Davenport in our tweeds and tans, listening to the Texaco Symphonic Hour. Cold-hearted reality is your middle-aged.
You're middle-aged. That's a good summary of childhood for I think all of us.
Yeah.
Tweeds and tans, listening to the Texaco Symphonic Hour. I'm gonna Google that and see if anything comes up.
If that's a real thing?
If that's a thing of any merit. The Texaco Symphonic Hour, nothing. There's the Texaco Star Theater, which is a thing that Milton Berle was behind. I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. The Texaco Star Theater replaced the Ford Symphonic Hour, this was a thing on NBC. Apparently it's just an old-timey thing from the 40s. So that's just, again, Niles and Frazier have a very specific, very old-fashioned upbringing, I guess.
Right. Mm-hmm. Frazier points out, well, he's not middle-aged, he's 41. Right. Middle age is more like 50, 55.
And Niles is like, mathematically, that only if you live to be 110 is 55.
Yeah, which he has a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daphne walks in. Mm-hmm. Niles is giving Daphne a ride because she's going to hang out with some girlfriends of hers. They're going to drink beer and play darts, not in that order. Right,
in the flip order, because it's just ask Blind Willie, the bartender, presumably who drank and then played darts in that order.
He also makes shoes and tells people he's from Seville.
Yeah, that's a thing he does.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all a setup just so we can have another Niles Daphne joke where it's like she's talking about like that's right. So Frazier asks her like, "Oh, Daphne, when you look at me, do you see like a young man or an older man?" And Daphne's like, "Oh, I'm not getting into that Vietnam.
Getting into that Vietnam," which is an interesting thing I haven't heard.
Yeah. It's a very colorful very colorful expression. She learned a long time ago there are 3 questions you never answer honestly. How old do I look? Do you like me hair? And was it good for you too? And and that's the point where Niles is kind of like, he just sort of goes off into his own little sex pervert world where he's
where he's just super into thinking about Daphne naked or something.
Right. So Frazier, again, he's talking to his dad. Martin is making all these points about, like, yeah, Frazier's getting older. Can you get out of the chair without grunting? Can you get up at night without going to the bathroom? Can you eat pizza less than 12 hours before you go to bed? So Frazier is, well, he's I don't know, he's a bit scared, I guess.
He's like, what's on the pizza? And he's like, oh, that's not. And now it's middle, and Martin just tells him, hey, you're middle aged, it's fine, just don't fight it. Don't be weird. Don't have like a weird midlife crisis like I did. And in the middle of Frazier thinking about like plastic surgery or something, he
talks about getting a chin reduction.
A chin reduction. He wants
chin
less
tuck.
chin. He wants to tuck his chin and lift his eyes in that sort of fashion. So Martin shows him a picture of himself in 1974. He's dyed his hair jet black. He's got a leather jacket, and Harvey. He's going to join like a biker gang to get his youth back.
He looks like one of the Village People.
Right, which is just fun. And then so it came and it went. And by the time Frazier was back from Harvard, Martin had chilled out, and Frazier had never known about it until this point in time.
So yeah, basically Martin's message to Frazier is just go with the flow. Don't fight it. Don't fall into like some weird midlife crisis thing like I did. It's you know, it's you just keep your guard up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. That's the scene.
That's the whole thing.
We cut to a department store in the mall.
Yeah.
It's
it used to be a Pinsky's,
which I don't think is a real place.
Well, only one way to find out. You keep the thing going. I'm going to be using the old Google-nator.
It's Pinsky's department store. Frazier's like, oh, well, no, they got rid of it. Or no, he doesn't have any idea whether or not it used to be another department store. Martin's just talking about how it's the good old days when you could buy lingerie, a bag of popcorn, transmission fluid, all under the same roof.
Yeah.
And Frazier's like, finally, something I'm glad I forgot.
Fucking Costco and Walmart doesn't mean anything to you, Frazier. What an asshole! I for one don't forgive these comments.
So, Martin picks out some pants for Frazier. They got elastic in them, and Frazier's offended because, you know, why would he wear such a thing?
Sure.
And Martin's like, hey, the sands of time are shifting, buddy. Mostly south.
Okay, got him.
If you don't want to go with elastic, maybe you should have suspenders.
That way, if you keep your jacket closed, that little gut of yours can hang down to here. Nobody's
that gigantic gut of yours, Frazier.
That fat. First of all, Martin is just body shaming Frazier at this point, which is an interesting. Just kind of picking on him as they are wont to do. And then this sales girl comes over. Carrie, played by Sarah Melson. How many episodes of Star Trek was she on, Adam?
You know what? I didn't do any prep before this episode, so I haven't had a chance to see how many episodes of Star Trek she's in. But taking a cursory look at her IMDb page, it looks like not any,
None?
Which is shocking.
That is outrageous.
She was on The Wonder Years. She was on Beverly Hills 90210. Never on Star Trek.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a lost opportunity.
So not worth talking about.
It's going to be a very short episode, then.
Yeah, I know. It's ending after this send. So Carrie goes up to Frazier. She's a salesperson. She asks, oh, can I help you with anything? Frazier, oh no, Martin, like, he sees Daphne. Daphne's there in the store with him. And he sees Daphne shopping for him, Martin, and he, like, she's looking at something with stripes, and he's like, Daphne, no, get away from there. Like she's like she's on the train tracks, and like there's a train coming at her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he has this really dire tone to his voice.
Yeah, like interesting.
Um,
I don't get it for one, but it's funny. Yeah, I get.
Why wouldn't Martin want to wear stripes?
There's slimming historically.
He's very particular about his boxers.
Right. He doesn't want. Yeah. He's a very, very, very specific guy.
Carrie goes up to Frazier. They strike up a conversation. She thinks he would look really good in this pair of pants that she's got picked out. Nice tall guy like him.
She does a little bit of flattering him, guesses his age, but it's 36, which is 5 years younger. And then when Frazier's like, "Oh, I'm so," like Frazier's like, "Are you serious?" And she's like, "Oh, you're probably more like 34. Now you're not going to want to buy anything." And he decides to buy a couple of Armani shirts. They trade bar. She's been taking some psychiatry courses, and Frazier makes a terrible pun.
It was best. It was the best joke in the whole show, Wes.
Was it?
It was. So he asked her.
Is that what won the Emmy this episode?
Yeah. So he asks, "Well, what are you, Freudian or Reichian?" And Frazier's like, "Oh, well, actually, I've been leaning more towards Jung. I guess it's because I'm young at heart."
Now, as any Frazier head will know that there's a Freud-Jung rivalry between Frazier and Niles that this does not play into at all.
Right? No, it doesn't.
Apparently, this joke is non-canonical, which is why it didn't win anything.
So, yeah. So she proceeds to flirt with Frazier. Basically, she calls him cute.
Mm-hmm.
So, time lapse. Martin comes back for Frazier, and Martin's like, "Oh, Dad, I met this this woman. She's flirting with me." And Martin looks over at her, and she's like, "Oh, well, she's on commission because she's a salesperson. Of course, she would flatter Frazier as a means of getting him to buy more clothes."
Right. And Frazier is like, "Oh man, like." No, she said on me, and then Martin's like, "Are you forgetting about that little talk we had about the fact that you're old and dying, Frazier?" And then Frazier's
"You're old and unattractive, and no one will ever love you.
And you've got a big gut, and you need to wear put these suspenders on, Frazier. What are you thinking? Like, it's kind of mean. It's a little mean." And yeah, so Frazier's like, "I guess I shouldn't ask her out." And then Martin's like, "Yeah." And then Frazier's like, "Thanks."
She's old enough to be your daughter.
Old enough to be your daughter. You. Yeah. So we move on to the show, and we get to see some Bulldog, and that's fun.
He's not dead. Bulldog is. Last time we saw Bulldog, he was getting hauled off and to be beaten someplace.
He apparently got out of the hospital to very little fanfare from the Frazier household, but he was, we assume, at least savagely beaten in the parking lot of the Seattle Supersonics Arena. Which is a thing I should know the name of.
But here he looks fine.
Yeah,
but there's plenty of emotional damage just under the surface.
Of course. It was at the time the Climate Pledge Arena. Or it could have been the Tacoma Dome, since they had two arenas between 94 and 95.
Did you find anything else out about Pinsky's?
Oh, not real. Not a real place.
Not a real place. Okay, no, I figured. So yeah, we get to our next scene. KACL, it's the radio show. Frazier is introducing Bulldog's show. Bulldog comes in, and he's talking about Ken Griffey Jr.'s groin.
Ken Griffey Jr.'s groin area, and talking about how it's great news. To which Frazier is like, "I'm sure years from now we'll all remember where we were at the moment we heard the joyful news."
Very sarcastic.
Yes, very dry wit.
In comes Carrie with Frazier's pants, and of course Bulldog, being the shameless sexual harasser that he is, immediately starts talking to Carrie, and talking about, oh, you look familiar, didn't you pour a flaming tequila shooter down my throat?
Right.
At which
To
point,
which Carrie is like, no, I don't think that. And he's like, well, what are you doing next Memorial Day?
ah,
Which, if I may, I think is the tightest joke in this episode. I think that's a solid. I think that's and the fact that that's a pickup line Bulldog has in the pocket, pretty fantastic, pretty wonderful.
so basically Frazier shoos Bulldog off, and he's like, oh, well, just in the off chance it makes a difference, I drive a 94 Camaro. It's a bitchin' Camaro. That's a Dead Milkman's reference for anybody who is keeping score.
Classic.
So Carrie's like, oh, is he gay? Is that why is he like? It seems like he's overcompensating.
Very performative masculinity, and then Frazier's like, I don't know, but I'll tell him about you saying that because I think that's fun.
Is this like I think this is an in joke because Dan Butler, the actor who plays Bulldog, I believe he is gay in real life.
Oh, that's fun. That's cool.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that Bulldog, the actor, was a gay man. That's super cool.
He is.
Yeah, he's married to producer Richard Waterhouse. He came out to his family when he was in his early 20s. So he does like one-man shows when he's not Bulldog from Frasier.
He's a fantastic actor, and I would love to see him in more stuff. He has been in some stuff. I think he was a voice on Hey Arnold.
Oh, he was Mr. Simmons.
Which one was Mr. Simmons?
I don't know who that is. I'm gonna look that up now. Hey Arnold, Mr. Simmons. Was that a teacher?
Probably.
Oh, it's the bald one. Let's see. Can I put the picture? When you see him, you'll be like, oh yeah, the teacher from Hey Arnold.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking. The one who looks like Dan Butler.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. I didn't know that was him.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's cute. But yeah, I think they're making this joke. I think this is a reoccurring thing. I think on Frasier because there are a number of actors on Frasier who are gay in real life.
Yes.
And they play with this by like writing stories specifically where their characters who aren't gay are acting gay.
Mm.
And we'll get to those episodes soon enough. But for the time being, this is just a little nod.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Carrie, Frasier is he's still a little uncomfortable about around Carrie. Carrie is she's very enamored with Frasier. She enjoyed meeting him with yesterday, and she
gives him the pants for free, I think, because Frasier's like, what do I owe you? And then she's like, no, I just came to give you these pants. I just figured you'd want these pants, and I want coffee with you. Here, I brought you these pants for coffee.
It's a tradition in her country where if you give a man pants, he has to take you out for coffee.
I come from Seville, where the shoemakers are blind, and the coffee can be traded for pants.
So Frasier's like, oh, well, geez, I'm flattered, but you're a beautiful young woman, but, I'm too old for you,
Right.
You're 22, and I am a higher number.
I don't think it'd be appropriate for us to date. And then Carrie, being very forward, is like, how about we just live together? And then
She's just making light of a very awkward situation.
Right. And then Carrie's like, if you change your mind, you know where I am. Enjoy your pants. To which Frasier says, same to you. And then Bulldog comes in and starts knocking Frasier on his dome, on his old headpiece. And then is like,
she's like, she wanted to go out with you. You didn't have to chase her. You didn't have to harass her. You didn't have to pay her. You didn't have to drug her.
You didn't have to do the old Bill Cosby. You didn't have to do the old Harvey Weinstein. You don't got to assault this woman. She's providing enthusiastic consent. which is a thing I rarely get as Bulldog.
Frazier's like, of course, she's too young. I don't expect you to understand. And Bulldog's like, well, I don't understand. I'm going to go after her on the elevator. Which I really hope he didn't make it to the elevator before she got on.
Maybe she's never dated a former professional hockey player before.
You never played hockey.
And Bulldog is like, it's like it's like we're from different planets. Because of course he's never played hockey, but that's not going to stop him from claiming he's played hockey to try and have sex with this woman.
Bulldog is awful.
Yeah. I mean, he's awful for other reasons, but he's also awful for this reason.
Yes.
Including, presumably, if he did get to the elevator, he had one of those fake Chinese glasses that you put on to make your eyes look that way.
Right. He thought she would be impressed by his racist Chinese person impression.
I feel like that's a thing. He's got in his back pocket at all times.
Roz comes in. She's overheard this whole exchange. And she thinks that it's pathetic that Frazier didn't go for the date because it doesn't matter. Roz thinks it's hard enough finding somebody. So when the opportunity comes along, you got to grab it. And Frazier's like, well, what about the age thing? And Roz is like, well, that's not important.
And then Roz is like, oh.
If I see a beautiful young girl with an older man, I just think he's rich, and then I try and make eye contact with him.
I try to get him seduced.
See if he was interested in a threesome.
See if he'd be willing to half the money he's giving to her and give some to me.
Get in on that will.
Get in on that will and testament.
All of Frazier's co-workers are terrible.
Yeah, they're not good, but I mean, yeah. So
Frazier, Roz less so than Bulldog.
Two different scales. So presumably in between the next two scenes, Frazier has a little bit of doubt. He calls Niles.
They meet at Cafe Nervosa.
Of course, the old Cafe Nervosa. And Niles is like, oh, thank goodness I'm so glad you called me. I want to show you some this party game that Maris's friend showed me. And then Niles is like, Frazier is like, I want to talk about that. And Niles goes, shh, this is a hoot. This is a fun party game. If you were stranded on a desert island with one meal, one aria, which is referencing to, I believe, a solo from an opera.
Yeah.
I believe that, yeah, okay. And one bottle of wine, what would it be? And Niles is like, I really don't. And Niles goes, Frazier, please. And Frazier says, a Big Mac, I'm Your Venus, and Ripple.
Now, I didn't know what Ripple was, and I looked it up. This is so according to the Sanford and Son Wiki,
okay,
which has an article about Ripple. Ripple was a fortified wine produced by E&J Gallo Winery, and as a low end fortified wine that was popular in the United States, particularly in the 1970s, possesses a relatively low alcohol amount. It was originally marketed to casual drinkers. Due to its low price, it had a reputation as a drink for alcoholics and the destitute.
Oh, it was casual. It was originally marketed to casual drinkers. Kind of like Michelob Ultra, where it's like, if you want to drink slowly over the course of an evening, get Ripple. I guess that's the idea.
So yeah, just a little bit of backstory on Ripple. Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah,
Niles is deeply
Frazier isn't taking it seriously at all. He isn't taking the game that Niles is so excited about seriously.
Yeah, and it turns out that Niles was right. Frazier starts by saying, "Niles, you're right. Getting a little older," and Niles is like, "Good. I like hearing that I'm right." And Frazier's like, "The other day I was asked out by a 22-year-old girl I met at the mall," and Niles is like, that's alarming. And then Frazier's like, well, I turned her down. And I was like, no, you were in a mall. Did anyone see
womp,
you?
Womp,
womp. Womp. And Frazier's like, I'm just wondering if I would love to go out with this girl. I'm just afraid I'm going to look like an old fool chasing after like a young girl, become a walking midlife crisis cliche, running around like that buffoon, Stanley Barrister.
Oh, that Stanley Barrister.
That idiot, Stanley
shameless,
Barrister.
So we learn about Stanley Barrister, who is a character that is never seen nor heard from again.
Of course
He
not.
is only used for this one scene, and he is apparently, just a walking a cliche.
He's a 60-year-old man who wears a toupee and is romantically entangled with a 21-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
So Frazier is worried that people are going to look at him like people look at Stanley Barrister if he goes out with Carrie. So Niles, to his credit, gives him some pretty good advice, I think.
Yeah.
In that it doesn't really matter what people think.
Right.
You got to do whatever makes you feel happy, and think about it. Are you doing this because you're running away from old age, or because you think that there is an opportunity to forge a lasting relationship with this woman? And Frazier's like, well, I don't know, and Niles is like, well, find out. You gotta go. You gotta try, find out, and to hell with what people think.
You gotta dance like no one is watching, and then watch where no one is dancing, and then yeah, and then Frazier goes, "You're right," and Niles goes, "There it is again. I never get tired of hearing that. Let the tongues of the doubting nabobs wag."
What's a
It feels
nabob?
right that's a great question, and I will be putting that into the old Google machine. A nabob is a Muslim official or governor under the Mughal Empire.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Does it? Let the nabob. Is that what that? Okay. A person of conspicuous wealth or high status. So like let the people who let the snobs turn their noses where they're going to. They're going to turn their noses. Live your life.
The people like Frazier and Niles.
Yeah. let the nabobs, let these Muslim officers and governors live in Seville where they already do. Just be happy. And then Frazier's like, and then he's polite enough to ask Niles the question back to him. If you were stranded on an island, where would you live? And then he said a word I don't know how to pronounce, but it's salmon, Visideart from Tosca, and the Neuf de Pop 47.
See, I purposely let you read that because I didn't want to sound like I didn't know how to pronounce it. You fell into my trap.
Of salmon at Guy Savoy. I'm sure it's not pronounced Guy Savoy. Visideart from Tosca and Coutron Chateau, Neuf de Pop 47. To which Frazier says, "You're so predictable."
Wes, you're embarrassing yourself.
I am doing my best. Doing my very best.
You are.
Yeah.
So Frazier he runs in. It's like the end of Casablanca.
Right.
Where he's got.
But it's in a building that used to be a Pinsky's department store.
Right. But he's got the trench coat on and everything. It's like right. It's very cinematic. He runs up to Carrie. He's like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. I came here to tell you something." And so he gets into like explaining about how he thought he was going through a phase. He thought he was having a midlife crisis, and he thought he was afraid to go out with her because it might, he was trying to recapture his youth or something. And Carrie...
And then she's like, "Oh man, I have unresolved issues with my dad that I was trying to work out." And anybody else would have been... And Frazier's like, "See, that's funny. We're both going through stuff." I would be like, "Wait, what? You're working... What is that? Weird."
Yeah,
okay.
That does kind of get glossed over.
Right. Yeah, I just have these unresolved issues with my father that I thought
What issues with her father does Carrie have that would compel her to date Frazier?
Right. Why? How is that coming?
How are those two things at all connected?
Right. And then Frazier's like, "Yeah, I just kept going back and forth," and Carrie's like, "Me too, back and forth." And so anyway, Carrie's
but it's also like, so Carrie, like, I feel like she should have read the room a little bit, like, because she comes straight out that she thinks that dating Frazier would have been a really stupid idea. But up until this point, Frasier, like, he's burst in. He's come to her place of work. He's got the trench coat on.
He's got this trench coat.
The trench coat of love and
of seduction. When you insist on, oh, I'm about to impress a young lady, you insist on a trench coat. That's why you would wear a trench coat.
Clearly, Frasier is getting up the nerve to say something to her, and then she just flat out says, "Oh, I think it would have been a really stupid idea had we gone out together."
Right, and then he's like, "Oh, me too." I'm glad we're on the same page.
That forced enthusiasm where he's where he pretends like he was going to say that thing the whole time.
Of course.
He's like the Wizard of Oz. You figure it out all by yourself.
And then he's like, I'm full of crap. I really I wanted to go out with you.
To his credit, he does fess up. He does say, yes, I did want to go out with you. And this kind of makes things worse for Frasier because
she's like, oh, you're being honest with me, and then gives
that's such an attractive quality in a man.
And then hugs him, and then he's like, oh, I don't know about this. And he decides to leave, and he's like, let's not
go down that road again.
And then she's like, okay. And then he goes, see you around. And he's so frustrated at how he sort of talked himself out of going out with this girl that he's into. He punches a mannequin and makes her job harder.
Right, she's got to pick that up.
And the credits, Daphne is getting boxers out, and one of them striped. Daphne, no! And that's the episode.
Yeah. So this was an interesting episode, didn't you think so, Wes?
Yeah, it was interesting. So here's the thing: is sometimes sitcoms usually wrap themselves up with a nice bow. It's kind of and it's fun to watch. Especially Frasier, a character who has very strict moral standards. It's fun to watch him futz with something and make the right choice and be angry that he's making the right choice. I don't know if it's one of those things where usually when you think of a great TV episode, it's tight, and this episode's a little bit more loosey goosey and conceptual, but it's a fun. I think it was fun. I enjoyed.
Well, I think it's nice whenever you can come up with a concept and like the audience can be like, oh, well, what would I do in this situation?
Right.
I would probably wouldn't date someone who was half my age.
I would. Well, yeah, because that would be a crime, Adam.
Well, it would be a crime in my case. Let's assume I was older.
Okay. Let's say you're older now. Let's say you're 70. And you meet a nice 35-year-old person.
I would have second thoughts about that. That would because first of all, I'm not rich, so if they're with me, there's some sort of larger scheme going on.
Well, Adam, it might just be a thing where you're an attractive 70-year-old man.
Bullshit.
This is a will it. First of all, I would be. Here's the thing. I would understand if you were exorbitantly wealthy. You'd be like, oh, what does this 35-year-old woman want? But if you're not wealthy, if you have nothing to offer this human being except your company, and she's like, yeah, I want to see where this goes, I think there's something interesting there.
I think that's suspicious as hell.
Well, do you think she's going to take your Social Security? Do you think she's going to go after your Medicaid card?
I don't know. That's what makes it so weird. I don't know why any human being would agree to spend any amount of time with me. I don't know why you agreed to do this podcast.
Well, Adam, it's so I could plug so I could put ads, so I could overlay ads at
Where's
the beginning.
my $50, you asshole?
I'll get it off the back of a truck. I'll find it for you with the CBS All-Access.
Our next episode is Travels with Martin. The Cranes and Daphne go on a road trip in a Winnebago, but a quick trip across the Canadian border causes certain complications.
Oh my goodness.
I really like this episode. I'm looking forward to it.
I haven't watched anything outside of the podcast, but I have seen... No, I remember we were going over how fun David Hyde Pierce is at physical comedy, and this is a fun bit is them in the RV as
Yes.
it bounces up and down. Yes.
Yes, yes. It's some great acting in the next episode. Looking forward to it. Stay tuned, everybody. We got more episodes coming. Until then, good night. The Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.